Hello and welcome to TheWrap's virtual Sundance studio. My name is Beatrice Verhoeven, and I'm here today to talk to director Pedro Coss and producer Shawnee Isaac-Smith, as well as two of the film subjects, Lenore Navarro-Dowling and Rosa Manriquez, about their new documentary, Rebel Hearts. Thank you so much for joining me from all over the country.
Thank you.
Thank you for having us. We're actually all in LA, so we're
even better. Everyone's in LA, but we're all doing remote, so.
Exactly.
So thank you so much for joining me. I'm so excited to chat about the documentary. Seeing as a lot of people who will be watching this video might not have seen the documentary, I was wondering if one of you could just briefly talk about what it's about.
Well, Rebel Hearts tells the incredible story of the extraordinary Immaculate Heart Sisters and their awakening in the 60s to be a part of the world, and and at the same time they faced fierce opposition from the very conservative Cardinal McIntyre, and it's really the story of their movement for change and how they're still making waves and today. So very much about our current moment.
Amazing. And talk to me a little bit about how this project came together, you know, when you first had the idea for this, and why you wanted to focus this documentary on this topic.
Actually, I'm going to let Shawnee, the incredible, our amazing visionary writer, producer, who actually began this project over 2 decades ago, take this one.
Okay, thank you. Yes, as Pedro said, over 20 years ago, I heard about the Immaculate Heart Sisters and knew it was an amazing story. And the more I learned about them, the more I knew it was a story that had to be told. It was just these amazing, progressive feminists of the day, but also role models for women in the world. And I felt that someone should document who they were. They were all very educated. They're working for social change in every part of their lives. And I was truly inspired by them. I said before that the young women of today who look up to Kamala Harris, that was the way I looked up to them, as far as I wanted to be like them. I wanted to find out more about them. And I feel that their relevance today is just as relevant today as it was back then. So that's why I think the story came out now and is very important to inspire the next generation as well.
And you spent 20 years or so gathering interviews for this documentary?
Yes, most of them took place in the first 5 to 10 years. That when other people became available, I went and interviewed them. Like a lot of the patriarchy of the church, who weren't willing to speak back in that day. A lot of them came forward at the end of the filming. So yeah, so it's 20 years.
Wow, incredible. And Lenore and Rosa, tell me a little bit about yourselves and your, participation and influence in this movement. Maybe Lenore, you want to start, and then Rosa can follow.
Okay, I was on the leadership team when Shawnee approached us with the idea, and we all agreed. We said yes. We never envisioned it would be another 20 years before realization. So we were talking about changes that have been made before 1970 and since 1970. Pedro uses the word awakening. I think for us, every year is an awakening. We have evolved through time with new members, with changing ministries. At one time, we were only teachers or nurses. But 1970 gave us the opportunity to dress like other people in the world, to choose our careers, professions, vocations. I taught at Immaculate Heart College, which was the epicenter of our community's movement to respond to Vatican Council, to be people worthy, to break down the walls that kept us from others. So throughout the whole college and throughout the whole community, there was a movement to look beyond our walls and to become part of a world that was changing and growing. It was the civil rights movement, it was the Vietnam War, it was a time with our students to create a community that would respond to the needs of the world.
Amazing. Rosa?
February 8th, I'm going to be celebrating 30 years in the Immaculate Heart community. So I was accepted into the community after its formation, but I was educated by the Immaculate Heart Sisters from 6 years of age through college. And I saw the history that was made from a different standpoint, not being a nun and not being in the midst of all the decisions that were being made, but still being impacted by those decisions and by the actions of Cardinal McIntyre and the Archdiocese of Los Angeles and the Pope and the Vatican. And it was a time of learning and formation that has stayed with me even now, where I was able to see up front, I was able to witness how women can maintain integrity, can claim their personhood, and can be obedient not to structures or institutions, but to the Holy Spirit, which is central to Catholic teaching. And it's been quite inspiring.
And a question for both of you: was there ever any part where you felt trepidation, participating or speaking about a certain aspect of your life in the documentary, or were you like, let's bear it all?
I don't remember being fearful. I think being women of hope made us look beyond any personal hesitation. Mm-hmm. There were members who joined us and left. We've been blessed with new members. So we have untainted by fear. I don't think fear drives us. We are driven, if that's the right word, by hope, by faith in one another and in God, and in God's call to be of service to others and to work for the common good, and by loving, which the gospel calls us to do. So rather than being driven by fear, we're being called to practice and live out faith and hope and love.
Wow. Rosa, did you have anything to add?
Well, as far as the filming was concerned and come forward and being candid about what I was about, the one thing that I had second thought about was sharing my process of becoming an ordained Roman Catholic priest through Roman Catholic women priests, because in the Roman Catholic Church, the ramifications are quite harsh. But after thinking about it a little bit, I figured, well, that train's gone out of the station already. It's too late. There's several people who have already found out what I'm all about. And I did not feel fearful. I felt quite supported in my community and by others in my community when I came forward and shared with our leadership group that I was planning to embark on ordination. I was questioned quite at length, but I was not deterred. And I decided to break the news to everyone by going to one of the members who is quite Catholic with the institution, rather conservative. And I figured, well, if I tell her, the worst of it is done. And what was remarkable was that she told I don't agree with what you're doing, but I support you. And that's community.
Mhm.
So it's really great. And at the ordination itself, so many community members were there, and I received so much in the way of congratulations and love. So for myself, as far as we are community, that's all that matters to me. There's the
Yeah,
support, the love, and the encouragement to follow the Spirit and to be obedient to the Spirit.
wonderfully said. And Pedro and Shawnee, I was wondering, what was the most challenging part for you? I mean, Shawnee, 20 years of gathering interviews, I'm sure wasn't a breeze, but maybe just talk about that a little bit.
I was going to say that, one of our greatest challenges actually turned out to be one of our biggest opportunities in order to bring the story to life, which is Shawnee has made the most extraordinary interviews and captured these incredible firsthand accounts with these amazing women who, many of whom who are unfortunately are no longer with us today. And we also amassed a huge treasure trove of materials from the filmmakers who were filming at that time at the Immaculate Heart College, like Haskell Wexler, like Tom Conrad, like Bayless Glasscock, and all other documents, letters, correspondence, notes, photographs. But there are sections of the story that we wanted to bring to life. The goal is to make as much as an immersive and as much of a roller coaster of a journey to really feel that you're walking along with the Immaculate Heart Sisters. And one of the things that we were so inspired by, actually, the work by the beautiful artwork of Carita Kent, who was Sister Carita, who is was one of the sisters of the Immaculate Heart. And we actually were inspired by her work to animate, to create animation to help tell certain sections of the story, and also to bring together all these disparate elements in a way that feels really engaging and that feels alive and of this moment. This film is such a film about today and where we are today, and we wanted to communicate that visually. And I think by leaning into to the artwork and something that feels organic to the story, felt really right. Mm-hmm. And once we found our amazing animator Una Lawrenson via our amazing producer Judy Corrin, we thought, like, okay, this is it. And it actually became I think one of our biggest opportunities in a way to tell the story.
Wonderful. Shawnee?
Yeah, I can say that the challenge historically, the challenge was for me is actually getting subjects to be open and candid about their experience within the church. Of course, the sisters were open and with me and were more than willing to tell their stories, but the priests had a different story. A lot of them actually said to me, I don't want to end up in Siberia when I retire, so I prefer not to be interviewed. So they were taking basically the stance that, they didn't want to support the nuns back then or now because they were looking after themselves. But the courage of the women that I interviewed, and I chose to interview most of the elders in the community at the time because I wanted to make sure that they had them for their archives as well. But it was just, the challenge for me was there were so many amazing stories and so many amazing women to chronicle that, who to choose to tell the story in the end. That was the difficult part for me to really, for us to pick a few people that could really animate and tell the story in a more alive way, I should say.
Mm-hmm. And I thought a good way to wrap up the interview would be a question for Lenore, and I think Rosa might have fallen off the call, but there she is. Have you guys seen a lot of progress in terms of, the patriarchy since you started, and what does it look like these days?
That's a yes and no question, yes, Pope Francis gave us hope. No, there has not been much movement in the church. And we have hopes that someday it won't be male dominated, that women will have a voice, but it parallels our US government, which is male dominated, and women are beginning to get a voice. So for both institutions, growth is tough. Women have to keep pushing. Our male dominated society might learn someday that they don't own the world and can't control us all.
Exactly. Well, thank you guys so much for joining me, and congratulations on finishing it after 20 years and submitting it and, getting to Sundance. What a wonderful achievement. And thank you so much for joining me today. And I hope you guys have a great rest of your Sundance.
Thank you for having us.
Yes, thank you.